What's going on, guys? It's Fantastic Films here today. I'm here with my cousin Jesse, and we are going to be ranking the Bad Boys series. So before we get started, we are both massive fans of the Bad Boys series, but we're just going to share what the series means to us. So what does Bad Boys mean to you?
The Bad Boys has been a part of my life. The series came out in the 90s, and then the second movie came out in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, I'm old enough to have been born in the 90s, so I was able to see it at an early age, and I fell in love with it right away. The full series, at the time only 2 movies. I've been anticipating this third movie for many years now, and I've probably seen both movies, close to, if not over 50 times, because it's been such an important part of my life, and I really just admired both the director and the chemistry between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith.
Absolutely, man. And say what you want about Michael Bay, the director who made the first 2. He's got some hit or miss movies, but these Bad Boys movies, the first one was actually his debut film, and it was just really, really well done for a director debut.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I don't know, I'm a huge fan of the series too. You actually got me into them. I remember all the times that you would talk about them and that poster you had for Bad Boys 2, and I was always like, man, I gotta get on this series. And then we watched them together, and it was a really good time. So I just fell in love with the series and showed them to my friends, and it's one of those series where everything just works.
Yeah, it's
funny.
The perfect mix of comedy and action, and it's got a little bit of risque, here and there. But overall, it's just a phenomenal series in terms of, you laugh a little bit, you get connected to the characters, the plot is well developed, and the character development is strong, and that's what really, you get attached to the characters, you can kind of relate it back to your own life, and that's been the real reason that I've fallen in love with the movies and the series, because it's been so relatable. But if you're having a bad day, you can watch the series and you laugh for more than half of the movie. So
absolutely. So before we get into ranking them, I just want to state that obviously we love this series. So if we're starting off at number 3. And, if a movie's in the number 3 spot, we still really enjoy it. It's kind of like picking between kids. They're all really, really good. My number 3 for me is the original Bad Boys. It's hard to imagine that, the original film in a series is actually, in last place. But it's just, like I said, it's still an amazing film. But it's rare in a series, especially like this, where they're so far spaced out that they actually just keep building and building and getting better as they go along, versus where, in most series, the first one's usually the good one, and then it's kind of steadily declines. It's a really remarkable series that they have so far, but yeah, my number 3 is Bad Boys.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. First installment of the series was definitely my least favorite, for better lack of words. I still enjoyed the movie. I thought that the chemistry between the two of them was great, and Martin Lawrence originally tapped Will Smith to be his partner in the series, and he did that because they had such good chemistry together, and I think that that definitely showed in the first movie, but it was kind of their debut, and they were kind of learning how to work together, and I think Michael Bay had some opportunities which he resolved in the second movie, but during the first movie definitely had some room for improvement, and I think the storyline was a little bit drab. It was classic 90s movie, kingpin for drug lords, and you got to go after them. And so I think that moving forward, the development really started to happen in the movie series. And so for the first movie, I'd argue that it was still a great movie. You'll still laugh. It's still worth watching. Unfortunately, I would say it's definitely in last place out of the series.
So in second place, I'm going to be putting Bad Boys 2 there. That was a huge toss-up because, going into the new one, I've loved Bad Boys 2 for the longest time. Like I said, when I first watched that with you, it was just, everything I loved about the first one just multiplied, and it was just amazing. And I didn't think that could be topped. Bad Boys 2, the action is crazier. Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are just back at it again, and their chemistry is on another level. The jokes are amped up. It's a lot longer. The first one is right under 2 hours, and then the second one is 2.5 hours. So definitely extra screen time, but for a huge runtime like that, it really moves well. The pacing is good. So overall, Bad Boys 2 is a really good time.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree here as well. Definitely the second movie would be in second place for me. The comedic side of it definitely was increased from the first movie. You know, you get more character development in the second movie than you had in the first movie. You get some of the backstory between their lives and how they got there. That gives each character a little more depth than you had in the first movie. There's more, you know, female plot development and character development in the second movie than there was in the first movie. The first movie was all more of just about the two boys, you know, living their lives and doing their cop thing. But the second movie has more development. It brings more of the family aspect into it, which is cool. And then you know, you get more involved in terms of the plot line really thickens compared to the first one. There's more to it, and I think that you know, in terms of, you know, overall, you know, effects and overall you know, the different aspects the movie were definitely better in the second movie than they were in the first movie.
So obviously now we're down to our number one spot, and you know, process of elimination, it's going to be Bad Boys for Life. But like I said, you know, we really didn't expect Bad Boys 2 to be topped because it was just that good. And in Bad Boys for Life, you have a whole new perspective, because since they filmed them in like, you know, such like long gaps of time in between, you get to really see the stages of like Martin Lawrence and Will Smith being in the first one like these two like new like hotshot cops in the streets in LA, and then move up to like, you know, they're kind of like middle-aged at this point, you know, and you know, things like Martin Lawrence is facing retirement, you know, and they're all struggling with getting older, and it's cool between like the brilliant chemistry that they have. It's cool to like, it brings out the comedy in those situations. But there's also, you know, besides the fact that like the comedy is great, the chemistry is great, and the action is like really amazing, there's also a lot of emotional stuff in this movie, a lot of emotional currents and undertones that surprisingly strike a chord with, at least with me, you know, when I was sitting in the theater, because we saw this before, and we're going to be seeing it tonight, which is going to be awesome.
Second time.
There we go. But there's definitely some like unexpected moments that happen where, you know, whether it's like certain like bursts of violence, you know, that in the others, you know, you can kind of see them coming. A lot of surprising things that really, you know, threw me for a loop where I wasn't, you know, seeing it coming, and certain characters I didn't realize that I cared about as much as I did until certain stuff happens, and then I was like, wow, you know, it's really cool, like this series, that it's just gotten better and better. So
yeah, no, definitely agree. I mean, for the longest time you had, you know, certain movies or certain shows, really shows that are able to keep their cast throughout an extended period of time. You know, Modern Family, you know, Law and Order, you know, West Wing. But I think that, you know, this has been the first movie series where it's been able to last 25 years, and you have the same characters appearing in this movie that were in the first and the second movie, which when you think about the second movie being in 2003 and then this movie being in 2020, I mean, that's 17 years, and to see pretty much most of the main characters as well as some additional characters, you know, supporting actors and actresses make an appearance again in this movie, but act those same people 17 years later, you know, it's really cool to see the development in that. And this movie had a lot more development in terms of the characters, you know, the female characters, you got a lot of depth into them. You really learn more about Will Smith's background, where he came from, why he's doing this, whereas Martin Lawrence you learn more about in the second movie, so this was kind of completing the overall package in terms of the series. This was definitely the best installment of the series. It's the second most grossing movie in January, on its way to become the first. So that's definitely exciting too. So I think overall, you know, in terms of this movie, it was a lot more comedy. I think I laughed out of the 2 hours and 15 minutes in runtime. I think I probably laughed for an hour and 45 minutes. You know, the action was there. There wasn't ever a dull moment in the movie between laughing and all the special effects they have in there. And what was cool, because it wasn't over the top. It was, you know, it seemed obviously a little bit far-fetched, but less far-fetched than I think, you know, the second or the first movie were. And I think that that's what made it so believable, is that it was something that could actually happen.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
But if you stretch the imagination a little bit, and that was cool.
And it really is remarkable for like being a January movie. January movies are usually the kind of like transition time where Hollywood is going from like, you know, October, November, December, banging out lots of like Oscar bait movies, and then they just kind of dump the movies where they don't really know what to do with it. They just dump them in January, and it's usually like the poorly made horror movies or the kind of like average action movies. And the fact that this is as good as it is, I mean, I know we're only a month into 2020, not even, but this is like one of my favorite movies of the year, and I'm pretty confident that it will be by the end of the year. And you know, just really like it's cool with this series because what really sets it apart, like if you really get down to it, they all have a pretty similar plot line with different events that happen, but it's usually like, you know, your classic like the drug lord and the two detectives have to find. It's like you know, the buddy cop formula. But what really sets these apart, and really like any buddy cop movie, is the chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. These two are just iconic, and as much as I love Lethal Weapon, I gotta go with Bad Boys. It's like my favorite buddy cop duo, but their chemistry keeps this series alive and really sets it apart from other action franchises like, you know, the Fast and Furious movies or the Mission Impossible movies, which are great. But just in general, like these characters and this chemistry in particular really sets this series apart. And I also think, like, you know, this time around, the first two were previously directed by Michael Bay. They got these two new guys, I can't remember their names, and I probably butcher it. But they really brought like this cool aspect to the action, because the action in Michael Bay movies is really cool. You know, it's big, loud, you know, lots of explosions. But there's a certain way he shoots where, like, for me, I've never been a huge fan of it. Like, as much as I love the Bad Boys movies, the way he directs certain shots, like especially with the action, he likes to cut away a lot and show multiple angles. And this time around, the directors kind of went with like a John Wick style of action where they do lots of long takes and the camera moves around, but it doesn't cut. And you get these really cool, long, wide takes where you can see all the action happening, and it's really like a huge spectacle. Well, that's our ranking of the Bad Boys series. Thank you so much for being in this video, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure. And we're gonna go see it again tonight because it was just that good. So we're really excited. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you had any comments, just leave them down in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of this series. Do you like the Bad Boys movies? Are you excited for the new one if you've seen it? Let me know. Don't drop any spoilers. Don't be that guy. No one likes that guy. And as usual, if you like what you see here, make sure to subscribe. That way I can see you guys soon. Peace. Here we go. Here we go.
Sorry.
You're good. You're good.
Alright. Gotta compose myself. Alright. We're good.
Are we?
We're good. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Alright.
So I started laughing midway through. You should have just rolled from the square.
I know.
Oh,
All right.
man.